Today on Hatching for Health. Today we're going to be talking about RTD, and we have a beautiful family here to talk all about it. And we have Dr. Remy Nader, a neurosurgeon out of Houston, Texas.
So he kind of caught our attention first, and then about that time, we started finding out from the school that they said he isn't really hearing. And so we took him in to do some hearing tests, and they looked identical. Really? And we're kind of surprised. So.
Yeah. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Hatch. We're inspiring hope, spotlighting rare battles, and uniting families. Today we're going to be talking about RTD, which is short for Riboflavin Transporter Deficiency. And we have a beautiful family here to talk all about it. And we have Dr. Remy Nader, a neurosurgeon out of Houston, Texas. So welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
It's good to see you guys. We actually had you on the show, I think it's been 6 years ago. And we even had you on 3 years ago. So they're just growing like crazy. So tell us, you're now in you're in 8th grade?
10th grade.
Wow, so you're 16. Okay. And Bryce here is?
12. And what grade? 6th grade.
And so Patricia, Bryce, and Braden, I love the names. They're super cute. And Dr. Nader was on the show with us as well, so he got to talk to you guys quite a bit. How are you, Dr. Nader?
I'm doing great, Jessica. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I know you're in clinic right now, so we really do appreciate that. So Patricia, I just want to kind of start with understanding their diagnosis and at what age that you even learned that technically one son and then the latter son had it. If you can kind of take us back to that story.
Okay, so he was about 3. He had just turned 3 when we officially found out that he had lost his hearing. But once we found Cure RTD, we kind of looked back and said, we think his first symptom was at 11 months old. We just didn't realize it. And about the same time, so he was about 3, Braden was 7.5, turning 8. So they were pretty young, and we just thought hearing loss, but it took a little while to get a diagnosis and lots of testing. And
so he was actually 7.5. Okay, whereas then when Bryce came along, you learned, I guess, a lot sooner because you maybe had a feeling that he could additionally have that condition.
Well, Bryce was the first one that we saw symptoms with, that something was not quite right.
Oh, really?
And it was almost parallel, so he kind of caught our attention first. And then about that time, we started finding out from the school that they said he isn't really hearing. And so we took him in to do some hearing tests, and they looked identical.
Really?
And we're kind of surprised. So
yeah. So Braden, can you tell me some of the symptoms that you have that kind of lets you know that, hey, this is a condition that, I need to take serious to do different things in my lifestyle?
We didn't really think it was just since I had lunch right before recess, so my mom was just like, oh, you're just running around too much. But I had stomach pain every day, normally right after lunch or recess, and I don't remember any of the other stuff really.
Yeah, but your hearing a little bit is also obviously affected. But then as far as like communicating it, you're able to obviously have a conversation where I know Bryce is, able to do sign language to communicate at this point. Is that something that, I guess it's just, more severe in the different, diagnoses?
Right. So Bryce, because he was so much younger, he had just a lot more decline a lot sooner. Braden maybe would have gotten to that point, but he was older when the onset happened for him. And because that happened first with Bryce, then we kind of knew with Braden. And for whatever reason, his decline was just a lot more rapid. And so we were kind of surprised. A lot of kids with RTD do get implants, the cochlear implants, and they have good hearing benefit, but for whatever reason, Bryce hasn't had a lot of good benefit, so that's why he depends on ASL.
Okay. And Dr. Nader, I know that you treat mainly adults, but just with RTD, kind of give us a little bit of your historical, relationships with patients and your knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. So, RTD is a very rare condition. It affects about one person in a million. So there's only been about a little bit over 300 cases reported in the United States. So obviously, it's not something that I commonly treat or that anybody commonly treats for that matter. But it is a very interesting condition and disease that we read about and we prepare ourselves to manage from time to time. And it does affect adults from time to time as well as children. It's been reported up to the age of 30 as far as being diagnosed.
Okay. So this was interesting here. So this is like a recent visit that y'all had with, actually, we just talked about that. It goes this way. With like this spine surgeon that he visited, pediatric, and he's currently wearing a brace, but he basically has scoliosis is one of the symptoms that he in particular had. And when you can see the curvature, it's very, very great. So Dr. Nader, he's actually been wearing a brace and it's been improving. The doctor was actually very pleased. What is your kind of, opinion at his age and kind of what's going on here?
We don't have, unfortunately, a normal or a way to measure, each person's response to the treatments. But the fact that he's improving is a wonderful sign, actually. It means that, a lot of people can actually maintain a lot of their function if they do a lot of the preventative treatments such as bracing, taking vitamin B2, for example, on a regular basis, as well as maintaining through, physical therapy and occupational therapy and so forth.
Yeah. Speaking of vitamins, I'm going to sneak behind here because you brought quite an array of them. It looks like this is basically what they're taking on a daily basis, right?
Yeah. So the main vitamin here is the B2. It has to be kept in a dark container. You don't want to expose it to the light. But they take high doses of B2. So Bryce takes one in the morning, one at lunch, one at snack time, like after school, and then he takes two at bedtime. And they're 500 milligrams of B2 compounded.
So that's probably
it's
one of the most important ones. And what specifically is that doing, for their condition versus, an individual that doesn't take as much?
So that's the main treatment for RTD. And we're thankful that there is a treatment.
Yeah.
Some mitochondrial disorders don't have a treatment. Riboflavin transporter deficiency, their body is not getting the riboflavin that it needs. So the treatment is to dose them high doses, to just get that. But unfortunately, your body won't hang on to, it can only hold so much of the B2, so that's why we have to do it throughout the day.
Okay.
And then they have just a lot of other vitamins to help with mitochondrial support. There's not a lot of literature because it is a rare disorder. There's not a lot of literature to support.
Thank you, actually. This was a great example that you were showing me before the show. So
I brought this in to this is what I tried to explain to people. Your mitochondria is the powerhouse of your cell. Our cells are in our body. And most people have healthy cells, but with the boys, they are lacking. And so their bodies are producing all these free radicals. And that's where all these other vitamins come in to help. B2 alone is what we started on initially. Mm-hmm. And we saw improvement, but then it kind of capped off. And that was before we had found the Cure RTD organization.
Okay.
And once we found them, they said, no, they need other vitamins to help support. So they take quite a bit. They have CoQ10, there's a breakfast one, there's a evening one, vitamin D3.
Bryce, I know you'll have to sign with him, but I just kind of wanted to ask him as far as his symptoms, like, which one is something that just really, I would say bothers him that other kids he could maybe give advice to that have this condition.
He's like, I don't like having my back have scoliosis.
Okay. Yeah. So he has that brace on you showed me earlier, and he walks really well considering having that. How long does he have to wear that a day?
So he's supposed to wear the brace.
Can we see it,
Can
or
we
is
show
it?
him?
Yeah. It's like all the way
So,
around. Yeah.
He's supposed to wear it 16 hours a day. So when he's sleeping, he sleeps with it through the night, and then he wears it at school, but then he comes home and he wants a break. So we let him have that break, but he keeps telling him, wear it, wear it, wear it. If we can get him through adolescence, then there's a greater chance that his back will be okay. But he's kind of at a critical time right now as he's going through adolescence and his body's changing and growing, just to try to keep that spine as straight as we can.
Yeah, and so Braden, you mentioned, in your early stages of learning you had RTD, that you had, stomach pain and stuff. Is a lot of that subsided with the vitamins and just doing things different?
So because I take my vitamins every day now, like when I'm supposed to, then it doesn't happen as often. Like it'll still happen eventually, but it's not like every single day or every single week. It's more like every other month or so, and it's not a super long occurrence anymore. It's just like a day, and then I'm like, okay, I'm back to normal.
Yeah, you feel better. That's good. And so I want to touch on sports, because I know you're a big advocate, or I guess the Ninja Warrior show, and you actually are participating in some of those activities like on your own in preparation to try out in the future. Is that right? So does any of the things that RTD has going on with you affect that as your athletic ability?
So I have ataxia due to RTD. So anytime I get on a balance obstacle, I will fall off right away.
Okay.
But because I've continued doing the balance obstacles, I've gotten a lot better at not falling right away. Instead, it's like 2 seconds later. But
Yeah.
It's still a pretty good improvement compared to nothing. So
Of course.
I take it.
You look like you're in great shape, and your brother's right behind you, so you're doing something right. So Dr. Nader, just kind of speaking about that and balance and RTD collectively. So you're a neurosurgeon, but obviously you connect that, and you see patients for their spine all the time. But I know that some of the things I read about RTD is that intellectually, like, there's not a change that happens. Like, you still are just as smart as you were born to be. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit about the condition and from neurologically standpoint?
Yes, absolutely, and you're correct, Jessica. RTD does not affect your mental abilities or capabilities. In fact, you can still reason and think the same way that anybody else can. It's just your physical body tends to degrade itself because of the neurologic condition that affects different parts of your body, different muscles and organ systems, such as your hearing, your vision, and so forth. But your brain stays very sharp in the entire process.
Okay. And tell me, so I remember they wore these, and they've worn them probably since their diagnosis. What exactly is that doing? It's connected to their hearing, but it being connected to the skull as well. What is the connection there? Is it kind of releasing something, or?
So this is a cochlear implant, and what it's doing, they had to have a little device inserted under their skin.
Okay.
So they had this surgery back when, they had first lost their hearing. Braden's kind of explained a little bit better to me. He doesn't always hear things, like he says, I can't tell how loud I am, or I'm not sure what my voice sounds like. So it isn't quite like our hearing, but it gives them a way to hear, if that makes sense.
So if you were to take that off, are you able to hear me, or maybe you can hear me but you can't hear yourself speak back to me?
So before I got my second implant, if I took my implant off, I could still hear people. But after my second surgery, I lost the rest of the hearing in this year. So now when I take both off, I can hear myself talking. I'm not sure how great it sounds when I do it.
It's very loud.
But I can hear myself talking, and I also can hear really loud noises occasionally, and occasionally something quieter if it's quiet, but normally I won't be able to hear with both implants off.
Okay, interesting. We do have to take a commercial break, so we will come right back and talk about family and school and everything of that nature. So we'll be right back with you after this quick commercial break. Again, this is very rare. We're talking 1 in a million people are even diagnosed with this condition. Because you have other children.
There's 3 girls.
3 girls, okay. And none of them have any of the signs or symptoms of RTD? Hey, welcome to Infinity Diagnostic Center and Prestige Medical Pain Clinic. We are right here in the heart of Houston, inside the 610 Loop. We do interventional pain management and we do MRIs. Our MRI facility offers a 1.5 Tesla Siemens magnet. We can do MRIs of the brain, spine, any extremity, foot and ankle, we got you covered. Then we have our pain suite. So our pain suite is for when you do have that pain. You get the MRI and now the doctor can sit and evaluate that MRI with you and look at exactly what's going on. And right here, they'll do an interventional pain injection, ESIs, transforaminal, a various amount. We've got 2 doctors on staff, so we got you covered. Before you actually get set up over here, you're gonna come to our consultation room in which you will be visited with one of the specialists. And we're treating insurance, cash patients, Department of Labor, and personal injury, which is so important. So we can take care of all of those different needs. Just come see us here at Infinity Diagnostics and Prestige Medical Pain Clinic. Welcome back to the show. If you have just joined us, we are talking about Riboflavin transporter deficiency. And we have Patricia, her 2 sons, Bryce and Braden, and Dr. Nader with us. So before the break, we were talking about some of the treatment or the things that y'all are using for treatment. But to cut to you, Dr. Nader, again, this is very rare. We're talking 1 in a million people are even diagnosed with this condition. But from the information that you've learned of and from an expert opinion, what are some of the things that you see treatment-wise to be very effective?
Looking at the different studies that were written about this condition and doing some research on my own, there are some different treatment modalities that are commonly used for that. Obviously, the first one being vitamin B2 or riboflavin itself, but also, this condition has no cure per se. So it's a lifelong condition. So even if you take that vitamin B2, it's not going to just magically go away. You still have to manage it on a day-to-day basis. And the way to do that is through what we call a multidisciplinary approach with different modalities. So things like physiotherapy, physical rehab, occupational therapy, also speech and hearing therapy, all those things can help over time to be able to overcome some of the hurdles of this condition. And also adaptive devices, the hearing aid being one of the most popular ones, such as cochlear implants, and also bracing can also help over time, basically, just to touch upon a few.
Mm-hmm. And Patricia, it sounds like they have all of those, treatments that they're using. So tell me, like with school, for example, with Bryce being deaf, is he attend a different school, and then Braden not being? Are they in different, organizations?
Yeah. So Bryce goes to a different district. We're in the Klein district, and he goes to Cy-Fair because they service the deaf. Okay. And so there's a bus that picks him up and takes him. And within the middle school, they have the deaf ed program. Okay. So there are children there that are deaf. It's not quite the same as like a deaf school. In Austin, they have TSD, Texas School of the Deaf. So not everyone at this school is deaf, but they have deaf teachers, they have interpreters. So he has access to, other deaf students and teachers.
Which is great, just being able to, communicate, because unfortunately, we don't learn, sign language. So that sounds like it's a great place that you have them. And then with Braden, I think you said you're homeschooling. Is that right?
Yeah. Braden is homeschooled. We actually started homeschooling him because of the RTD. We didn't know what was happening, and we just saw him kind of declining. He was coming home in 2nd grade every day saying, "Mom, I don't really have any friends." And he was getting clumsier. That ataxia was kind of setting in. And so we started that homeschool journey with just not sure what was going to happen. I didn't know if we were going to lose him, and they were both declining pretty badly. But once we we got a diagnosis and got both of them on their treatment. We saw them improve again. But he did try the DEFA program in 5th grade. We had to kind of fight them a little bit to get him in, but he enjoyed it. But he really likes the flexibility of homeschooling.
Yeah.
So that's what
Because you have other children, don't you? I believe you have a daughter. You have a few children more, right? How many do you have?
There's 5.
Okay.
There are 5.
Are the others girls or boys?
There's 3 girls.
3 girls. Okay. And none of them have any of the signs or symptoms of RTD?
We were worried because we had after our 4th child, that's when we started noticing some really serious symptoms for him. And so we had them all tested once we had a diagnosis. And one of our girls doesn't have any mutations, and then one did, so she's a carrier. But then we had another one in 2020, and so she also is a carrier. So we have 2 carriers, 2 that have it, and 1 that doesn't have a mutation.
Okay, so that leads me to the question, does mom and dad have to be a carrier for the child to be born with it?
They do.
So if one of y'all didn't have it, then the child would not have it. It's got to come from both?
It has to come from both. So dad's a carrier, I'm a carrier, and 1 in 500 are carriers. So when you get 2 carriers, then you have a possibility of having RTD as a condition.
So Bryce and Braden, do either of you know anybody else that has RTD?
So there is one. We were the first diagnosed case at Texas Children's.
Okay.
There is one other family that has a little boy here in Texas. We have not met them, and then there's a family in Dallas that has a little girl with RTD.
So rare. And so there's curertd.org, I believe you may be familiar of. And so that's a website that should someone learn their child's been diagnosed with this, it's a place that has a lot of great resources, right? And probably just kind of speeds up the knowledge that you need, should you learn that your child has that. And so the diagnosis you said took place at Texas Children's, is that where you guys officially went and saw a pediatric? What type of specialty diagnosis is that?
Genetics. So our geneticist, they went through 3 rounds of testing, and now that's been changed. I mean, we've had a lot of progress thanks to Cure RTD. Had they had the same testing then that they have now, we would have found out much sooner that they had it. And
that's great. That means there's becoming, more research done to, acknowledge the condition. So is there any advice that you can kind of give parents? I think obviously this is a very rare condition, but there's many others out there. And I think a lot of times you just feel alone, when these things happen, someone else might not have RTD, but they have something else that they're another 1 in a million. So is there kind of any advice you could give other parents that are learning these things at this time in their life?
I think moms have a gut instinct, and I think listening to that is important because we noticed, kept kind of having that little battle with our pediatrician. Oh no, that's normal. And we're like, something's not right. But it really took the hearing loss to set things in motion for testing. Also, we're really thankful that we decided to do genetic testing. When they approached us about it, they said, that's up to you if you want to do it. And so we said, well, it can't hurt to get some more information. And later we were truly thankful because without treatment, RTD is fatal. And so I think that's the path we would have gone down. And sadly, some are lost and they never even know. So just finding out genetics really did help us figure out what it was. And then to have a treatment was such a blessing.
Yeah. So boys, what are you guys into? Are y'all into any particular sports like baseball, basketball?
He likes to ride his bike and basketball.
Yeah?
Like basketball? Yeah. And your bike? Yeah.
And what about you?
I like doing the American Ninja Warrior, and I also enjoy playing basketball and doing soccer. That's
great. So y'all aren't limited, from activities as it relates to that, because that's, something that can really take, a lot of a child's life away from them. So that's really important. I'm gonna have to get you guys some tickets, maybe an Astros game. I think someone in the audience has tickets to a game. I'm gonna let you boys maybe go to a suite to an Astros game. Would that be fun? Well, I'm gonna get it. Yeah, that would be cool. Definitely. At least for the three of you guys to join. And I did want to know, even from them, like if they have any other advice for other kids that have, diagnoses, to make them feel more comfortable, because you guys both seem very brave and also very confident, which is really important.
I think it's a process. I was having that discussion with Braden this morning, because I have a deaf friend, and he said, it's a hard life being a deaf person in a hearing world. And he said, years ago, he's like, it was kind of depressing. With all those medical changes, it was like getting unplugged from everything, your friends, just everything changed. And so I think that was really hard. But he's been he's impressed me a lot. Like, he's a pretty social kid. He doesn't let that hold him back. I think it's important to let other people see, you can do it. Yeah, it's challenging. He had a ninja competition, and the first obstacle was balance. Really? And he felt he was the only one that missed it. But one of the last obstacles was the hardest one. And he's the only one that nailed it.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's incredible. Yeah, you guys have a very, very bright future, and I encourage you to, make the most of what you were born with, because I think that there's a lot of people that you can inspire, and I definitely encourage that. And Dr. Nader too, just wanted to, if you had any additional advice for the family here while we're all on set, or for any others that are learning about this condition for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, first of all, I just want to commend you guys for, the tremendous way that you have been able to manage this condition. Both, Braden and Rice and their mother, of course. As far as general advice, I think awareness is number one, for people out there to be aware of rare diseases. Obviously, Cure RTD website is a great resource. There are other resources for rare diseases as well, such as I believe another one is called NORD, N-O-R-D, which is the National Organization of Rare Diseases, and it's raredisease.org. Just to be aware out there that there are other people out there with conditions similar to yours, and there are groups, social groups, forums online that you can, converse with and get ideas and, get out there and find out ways to, to be aware and manage your condition in general.
Well, thank you guys. Y'all have been a pleasure to be on the show. I'm gonna have to do a compilation of all the episodes with you from when they were, 6 years ago, little bitty. And thank you, Patricia, for bringing them on and taking time out of y'all's schedule to make it here. So it makes a big impact. So, and thank you, Dr. Nader.
Thank you, Jessica. Always a pleasure.
And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Hatching for Health. We'll see you right back here next Saturday.